excited to have her, Cristina Jimenez, executive director and co-founder of United We Dream. Okay, first of all, she's one of Forbes 2014 30 Under 30 in Law and Policy. She was named one of 40 Under 40 young leaders who are solving problems of today and tomorrow by the Chronicle of Philanthropy, and one of 50 fearless women by Cosmopolitan. United We Dream is the largest immigrant youth-led organization in the country. Christina's originally from Ecuador. She came to the U.S. with her family at 13. I'll have her tell you about that a little bit. But she basically also co-founded New York State's Youth Leadership Council, the Dream Mentorship Program at Queens College. She was an immigration policy analyst for the Drum Major Institute for Public Policy and an immigrant rights organizer at Make the Road, New York. She has a master's in public administration, and we're thrilled to have her on today to answer some of these questions that have been lobbied at me over the last hour. Cristina, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks. No, this is an important day to have you here. And could you talk a little bit about what it means that President Trump is trying to, what he says, curb refugees?
I mean, this is just plainly, really the first step of a mass deportation program and policies that are racially profiling and discriminating communities because of where they're from, whether that is religion or region of the world. And this is the first step that we're seeing as he committed to driving this agenda while he was on the campaign trail. Mm-hmm. During the campaign trail, he committed to creating a Muslim registry, banning people from Muslim countries from coming into the United States, ending or halting refugee programs, leading mass deportation, including ending the program that protects close to 800,000 young people from deportation.
Children and young Americans.
Exactly. And so this is the first step that we're seeing in fulfilling the agenda that he committed to, that, I believe is really reversing of what Lady Liberty and her promise stands for in terms of this being a country that welcomes people that are fleeing and seeking refuge.
Cristina, what would you say to the people who say that the idea of Lady Liberty is an idea of the past and we're in a new era, and so that welcoming of the huddled masses is something that we can't do anymore?
Well, what I would say is that those are actually core values of this nation, which is why many people from all over the world have come to the United States, generation after generation. It is those values that make America what it is. So if we are not that anymore, then it will be really great to engage in a conversation about what are we defining America as today. Are we the America that is closing its doors to other countries and closing its doors to refugees? Are we the country that is promoting a hateful agenda who, speaks really bad about women and disrespects women and disrespects Black people and believes that
it seems like we are.
Right?
I mean, not the people who marched in the Women's March and not the people who supported them solidly, but it seems like that is we have elected a president who is espousing those values and trying to change the core of the American value structure.
Yeah. Well, that's a choice that every American has to make, right? Are we that kind of America, or are we the America of opportunity, of freedom, of justice, of pursuing your dreams, of love, of solidarity, that and of innovation and ideas and diversity? So those are two completely different visions of the country that we are having to make a choice about. And let's be clear that the majority of people did not vote for Trump. And clearly, and that enters into a conversation about the challenges that we have with the electoral college system for presidential elections. But what you saw on Saturday, and I marched, and I was part of the planning of the Women's March, of the committee of different organizations that came together. You saw more than 3 million people just in the U.S. who mobilized against the hateful agenda that Trump has been promoting. And more than 6 continents joined us in that. More than 600 different locations across the globe had marches pushing back against this agenda.
Christina, you said that this is the first step in his agenda. What do you think we should be on the lookout for, and how can we? I'm going to actually. Could you stay on after our commercial break and then answer the question? What are we going to be on the lookout for from the Trump administration, and what can people do to support your work and, support their fellow human being and American? Can you stay on with us?
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll be right back. You're listening to the Alan Colmes Show. I'm talking to Cristina Jimenez from the executive director and co-founder of United We Dream. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm Julianna Forlano. I'm speaking to Cristina Jimenez. I hope. Am I pronouncing your last name properly, or am I destroying it?
Jimenez, that's good.
Jimenez, okay. Executive director, co-founder of United We Dream. And I have a whole bunch of questions for you. During one of his speeches to the Department of Homeland Security, Trump said, "I'm asking you to enforce the laws of the United States of America." He said that, that these agents weren't allowed to properly do their jobs, and that now the laws of the United States of America will be enforced and will be enforced strongly. What is he talking about when it comes to immigration? He was talking about immigration.
What he's talking about is expanding the definition of what a criminal is. So, for example, people like my own parents who have been living here for the last 18 years, working and paying taxes, are unfortunately undocumented. And, to work, my dad, for example, has to drive. Unfortunately, he can't have a driver's license. According to Trump, people like my parents and my dad will be a criminal.
Because he's driving.
Because he's driving,
mm-hmm.
because he is working here,
mm-hmm.
because he came here seeking a better life, and ultimately, as many undocumented workers, ends up being part of a workforce that is exploited by employers.
Yes. So instead of just giving them a path to citizenship for all the work and the taxes that they're paying on their work and all of whatever they're doing to help run the economy of this country, they are being penalized and sent sort of to live in this underground.
Exactly. And so it is this expansion of what is defined as a criminal that he is talking about when he's talking about the laws. And part of his executive actions means that they will be increasing the number of immigration officers that will be leading immigration raids and arresting people. According to Trump, my dad is a criminal. According to me, my dad is actually someone very courageous that left everything behind to come here for the well-being of our family. And that's what he's saying when he's talking about the law. So we can't be fooled here when he talks about implementation of the law. What he's doing is it's expanding the definition of criminality to use that as an excuse to the poor people.
Cristina, can I I'm going to play a clip of Trump talking about how enforcing immigration laws separate illegal immigrant families, and he uses the term illegal immigrant, which I would never use. That's why I said that. But here it is. I want your comment on this.
Pundits talk about how enforcing immigration laws can separate illegal immigrant families. But the families they don't talk about are the families of Americans, forever separated from the people they love. They don't talk about that, ever.
And he's making reference to what he purported violence that happens to American families because of illegal immigration. Could you speak to that?
Again, I mean, I think that this is a person that is creating an alternative reality. We are working with an administration right now that relies on alternative facts.
Yeah, otherwise known as lies.
And the kind of fiction, right, and the kind of fiction and the lies that he is infusing in the conversation about immigration is that there are families that have been harmed by undocumented people. Out of all of the undocumented people in this country, less than 1% of people have been involved in this kind of stories that Trump wants to raise about undocumented people that have, harmed Americans. And so these are the lies that he's talking about. Mm-hmm. So, like in any other community, we have the folks that harm our communities. Whether you're a citizen or a resident or an immigrant, we have that in every single community. And out of a very small number of incidents, he wants to paint the entire immigrant community as if they are, they're being harmful and hurting American families, which is not true. I think that what we aren't talking about is the fact that within the 11 million undocumented immigrant community, we have a lot of mixed status families, people who have U.S. citizen members of their families. And unfortunately, at United We Dream, we work with immigrant families all across the country. We have seen situations where parents get separated from the U.S. citizen children or vice versa. And those are the kinds of stories that he's not talking about and he won't talk about that are facts.
Cristina, let me ask you another question because we're coming up against the end of the show, and I have two more questions that I want to ask you. He wants to. Sure. He's talking about the wall in Mexico today also. And he says that it will help Mexico by deterring illegal immigrants from Central America and disrupting violent cartel networks. Is that just another alternative reality?
Well, I don't know if people that are hearing your show have been to the border. There is already a wall. And there is border security and there is border patrol. And in fact, the border is highly militarized at the moment. And if the claim is that, we have to address some of the drug cartel problems, that is actually a regional challenge that, my perspective is that the U.S. and Mexico and other Central American countries need to be working together on. So, again, I think that what we are seeing here is an alternative reality of what is needed. If you go down to the border, you will see, one, that there is a fence already, there
Sure.
is a wall, there are border patrol agents everywhere, and the border is highly militarized.
And what can we look for next? You said this is potentially the first step in one of his major platforms, which is to demonize immigrants and to expand the power to remove people from our land.
I mean, what we are seeing next is, which was partly part of his orders today, is attacking cities and localities that want to protect immigrant communities. So we will see more attacks on that front. Mm-hmm. We can definitely anticipate a program for Muslim registration. And we can definitely also anticipate attacks on women's access to health care and choice. We need to be prepared for his approach. The last piece that I will say is that he built this narrative of the country needing law and order, which to me that means AKA racial profiling, and empowering police forces to discriminate against communities of color in particular, and normalizing the killings and the police brutality that has been clearly been in the eyes of the American people in the last 2 to 3 years. So that is what's to come, and that's why I think it's very critical for for all of us as Americans to be ready to engage in defending the vision that we have for this country, which is completely different to what Donald Trump is promoting.
Cristina, thank you so much for joining us on the show. We're up against a break. Cristina Jimenez, Executive Director and co-founder of United We Dream. You can find her work at unitedwedream.org.